part of the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. I'm your host, Dennis Manoloff. Across the computer screen from me is the great producer, Jordan Powell. We have been away for a while. I have been away for a while. Jordan's been willing to help, but I've been the one who has not been able to go for, a couple of months, and I apologize to everybody out there. It's just that I'm battling a throat problem, a throat ailment. And, I have to be able to talk for my radio shows, and anything after that is kind of like a bonus. As much as I love the podcast, I have to have my voice ready for these radio shows. And what's been happening is a lot of strain on whatever it is back there, the throat, the vocal cords, I don't know what. And I've really struggled, with my throat and my voice and everything else. And maybe you can hear it a little bit today. So I'm just trying to tell you that, first, I apologize. Second, I haven't meant to be out this long. I might be out again for a little while because I'm just trying to nurse this thing. I've tried every natural remedy under the sun. I've been spraying my throat. I've been sucking lozenges, taking medicine. I mean, you name it. It's just been tough. So I know on the list of things to deal with, it's way down the list. I'm not saying, and I'm not trying to whine or anything, and I'm not claiming I'm in a bad spot. It's just, that's the reason why I haven't been able to do a podcast for a while. I wanted to start this podcast by saying, congratulations to all the 2022 Special Olympians. The Special Olympics USA Games is ongoing as we tape here on Monday, June 6th. It is, it's going, the Special Olympics USA Games are going June 5th through June 12th at the Wide World of Sports Complex in Orlando, Florida. And I got a chance to, watch the opening ceremonies yesterday, and it's just impressive, and it really was. And I know those athletes, they don't want to be looked at as any different than anybody else. And that's awesome. But you can't help but reflect about, the fortunes that you have, and we should all take time to remember, and be thankful and grateful for what we've been given, no matter what it is. And I just love, those Special Olympians, they go out there and they compete, and it's the purest form of competition. It's love for one another. And, I just wanted to make sure I gave that shout out to open this up for the Special Olympics USA 2022 in Orlando. I wanted to open also with the Guardians, the Cleveland Guardians, and where they stand, because it's, I think the last podcast Jeremy and I did was celebrating the Jose Ramirez signing. And of course that was well-deserved, and Ramirez is proving yet again why he's worth, probably 2.5 times the money he signed for. So Cleveland's incredibly grateful, should be incredibly grateful that he agreed to that ultra hometown discount. But the Guardians, they're a fascinating case right now because they're 24-25 as we tape, and they're getting ready to play a game against the Texas Rangers in Cleveland, the opener of a 3-game series tonight. So at 24-25, typically you don't get, overjoyed. And I'm not overjoyed. I'm to a degree disappointed. At the same time, I have some optimism. It's sort of a juxtaposition there, because the AL Central is a big old pig pile. It's got a lot of garbage in it, specifically the Royals and the Tigers. I'm not convinced the White Sox are going to be able to figure it out again this year like they did last year. They're 25-27 as we tape. Cleveland's in second place, a game under 500. Minnesota leads the division at 32-24. So Cleveland's only 4.5 back, despite this, mediocre start. And yes, Cleveland's got a lot of games to make up. Minnesota, as we tape, 56 games played, Cleveland 49. But the good news for Cleveland is a lot of those games are going to be made up as home games, because the home road splits for Cleveland, 11-8 at home, 13-17 on the road. 19 home games, 30 road games. And teams typically play better at home. So the Guardians, while they have a lot of games to make up, at least they can say, you know what, we're way behind the 8 ball as far as basically the rest of the league when it comes to playing home games. Minnesota, by comparison, is 17-11 at home, 15-13 on the road. 28 home games to Cleveland's 19. And on my radio shows, I've been accused of drinking Guardians Kool-Aid. I'm being told they're nothing better than a 500 team. In fact, they could even lose 90 games. And I'm not arguing with people on that, because this team hasn't proven anything, and it's coming off of a year in which they went 80-82. So I'm not saying that Cleveland's all that in a bag of chips. What I am saying is that the division stinks. The division is available. I am not going to crown the Minnesota Twins, who, by the way, came from last place last year, or were in last place last year. I believe it was 72-90 or 73-89. So you're not going to convince me the Minnesota Twins are going to go worst to first when they added a couple of nice pieces, but it's not like they overhauled the roster with Aaron Judges and Giancarlo Stantons and Mike Trouts. And even though Trout's in an 0-for-26 as of today, which is stunning, by the way, you can't even imagine a player as talented as Mike Trout being in an 0-for-26, but that's how humbling the game of baseball can be at the professional level. But it's not like Minnesota stacked their rosters with all these stars. They added Correa, they added Gary Sanchez and a couple other pieces, but I'm not buying the Twins until they're 10 games up in September. So, and the fact is, Cleveland's got them for 8 games by the end of the month, 3 in Minnesota and 5 in Cleveland. We will know a lot about this division by the end of June. That's why I'm optimistic, because I think the division is available. I think this team, the Cleveland team, has pieces. Yes, it's young, very young and inexperienced relatively, but there are pieces on this team that definitely interest me. You think about the rotation: Shane Bieber, Tristan McKenzie, Cal Quantrill. Maybe Zach Plesac can rejoin the fun. He just had his second consecutive quality start yesterday when the Guardians beat the Orioles 3-2 at Camden Yards to win the series 2-1. Hopefully Aaron Savale can return to form after he gets off the IL because of the glute issue. So you've got a rotation. Then you got some bullpen pieces. The hammer at the back, Emmanuel Clase. You got Eli Morgan emerging as a potential multi-inning, high-leverage reliever that not a lot of people saw coming. In the lineup, of course, you got Hosey. Here comes Andres Jimenez busting out in his sophomore campaign with the Cleveland Guardians, showing why the Mets organization was so high on him when he was coming up through their pipeline. Ahmed Rosario, the other middle infielder with major league experience, who came over in the Lindor-Carrasco trade, he's starting to heat up a little bit. You know what Rosario's capable of. You've got hopefully Franmil Reyes returning to form after he gets back from his IL stint because of the hammy. Josh Naylor is definitely fun to watch and swings a pretty heavy stick. Oscar Gonzalez has come up and done nothing but hit. He's fun to watch. Miles Straw is a defensive witch in center field. Hopefully he can pick it up batting average and on base wise. Although he is drawing walks, you'd like to see the average go up a little bit and maybe you get hit for some more extra bases. Owen Miller has been really, really good. So, not only do you have pitching, but you have some offensive pieces. And the other thing too is when I look at the A lineup for Cleveland, the one that I think Terry Francona would like to send out there more often than not, assuming, again, everybody's healthy, and that's a big assumption because rarely in any MLB season with any MLB team is everybody healthy. But think about this A lineup. Miles Straw leading off, playing center field. Ahmed Rosario batting second, playing left field. Jose Ramirez batting third, playing third base. Franmil Reyes, cleanup man at DH. Josh Naylor first in the 5-hole. Owen Miller, second baseman in the 6-hole. Oscar Gonzalez, right fielder in the 7-hole, and maybe you want to slide in Stephen Kwan in there every once in a while if you want to give Gonzalez a blow. Batting eighth is Andres Jimenez, the shortstop, and batting ninth would be the combo of Austin Hedges, Luke Maile, most likely Hedges because he's your A catcher and Maile your B catcher. That is not, a New York Yankees lineup. It's not a Los Angeles Dodgers lineup, but it is a lineup that I think can grow together and be a functional to good lineup in the American League Central. Are they going to be all healthy at the same time? And if so, are they all going to be able to hit well enough to stay in the lineup? Who knows? But what I'm saying is, it's not like you're looking at a 24 and 25 Guardians team that's broken down with a bunch of 38-year-olds hanging on, or, 21-year-old, 23 years old who looks like they can't, who look like they can't hit. We're talking about a roster that has guys who look like they have a clue at the plate, have put up some pretty good ABs, and they're definitely worth keeping an eye on. Are there any guarantees? No, there aren't. And that's why I think their victory range could be as low as 70 to 72 wins, which would put them in a 90-loss category. But I also think they can win. Their ceiling very well might be the mid-80s. And I think the mid-80s might be capable of, at least competing for a division spot, a division title in September. And then hopefully you get some luck and you can kick it up into the high 80s and perhaps steal the division. But as I said, I'm not convinced about the White Sox repeating, and I'm certainly not a believer in the Minnesota Twins at this point. And that leaves Cleveland because Detroit and Kansas City are nowhere close. They're a joke. So it's a 3-team race in the AL Central. And that's why I've been trying to say that, I'm hanging on every game and I'm battling because, as a fan, as a follower, because I want to see meaningful baseball, sorry, not sorry. I want to see meaningful baseball from my major league team. And I think this team has a chance to do it. A good way to start would be this week with Texas and Oakland, which is actually a continuation because, I saw them making hay potentially as early as May 17th when they opened with Cincinnati twice, and Cleveland promptly lost both games. So that was disappointing. But they're in a stretch here with the exception of Houston going up through the middle of June again at Colorado, where they have a chance to close ground on Minnesota, while Minnesota this week is playing New York and Tampa Bay in Minnesota. So hopefully Cleveland by the end of the week can be within, 3, maybe 2 games in the top spot. And, the perception of the Guardians can change in a lot of people's minds. All right, when we return on the other side of the upcoming break, we'll talk a little bit of NBA Finals.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Amico from Cavs on the Break NBA podcast. Be sure to give us a listen for all your Cleveland Cavaliers recaps, analysis, breakdowns, draft talk, free agency. The list goes on and on. Give us a listen, Cavs on the Break NBA podcast.
Hey everyone, I'm Holly Wetzel.
And I'm Jeremy Powell.
And we are your hosts of The Orange is Oranger, a Cleveland Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network. We give you all the dog pound coverage that you'll need each week to get you ready for kickoff and beyond.
Don't miss our breakdowns of each week's matchups, game recaps, and any and all news out of Berea to feed your Browns appetite. As we all know, Holly, dogs gotta eat.
That's right, Jeremy. Hit that subscribe button and never miss an episode of the Orange is Oranger Browns podcast on the Press Play Podcast Network.
The R&R podcast going to be rocking and rolling with you because football season is underway. College, Ohio State, the Power Fives, the MAC, the Browns. Michael Regai, are you ready to rock and roll with some football?
Kenny, I've been ready. This is our time of year. This is what R&R is all about. We're going to be with you every week. Kenny just said it. Browns, NFL, Ohio State centric. So you got to stay with us all fall and winter long here on R&R.
That's right. The Reg Eye and Rhoda podcast coming to you here on the Press Play Podcast Network. Subscribe now and don't miss a show.
Welcome back to the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. Jordan Powell is producing and directing on the other side of the computer screen. I apologize, as I did at the top of the show, for the voice that is struggling. It's just one of those things that, I don't know what's going to happen, but I just got to figure out a way to somehow get this voice better, get the throat better, because that's where it's coming from. It's pain in the throat. It's not even, the hoarseness. So I have to be careful how I speak, because otherwise it starts to really hurt. This segment, I wanted to say, talk about the NBA Finals. It's very unfortunate for me. Two of the franchises that I detest, the Celtics and the Lakers, are playing the NBA Finals. It's a matter for me of which one do I detest least. And I detest least the Boston Celtics, at least right now, because I can't stand the Warriors. And I don't understand how anybody in Cleveland who has any rooting interest in the Cavs can possibly enjoy watching the Golden State Warriors after what the Warriors did to the Cleveland franchise in 15, 17, and 18. It's remarkable to me. I see it on social media. I see it elsewhere. Oh, the Warriors are so amazing. Oh, the Warriors, Steph, Clay, Draymond. Oh my gosh, this team is unbelievable. If you don't appreciate the Warriors, then you don't like basketball. Oh, shut up with that. Okay, respectfully, shut up. I'm a Clevelander, born and bred. I love my Cavaliers from the moment they started playing, and I don't forget. And I can't stand the Warriors, and I'm not going to be shamed into liking the Warriors because they represent what pure basketball is all about. No, you guys go ahead if you're in Cleveland and root for your Warriors, but do it in the corner and put some duct tape on your mouth respectfully, because the Warriors just, they bother me as much, if not more so, than the Yankees or even the Ravens or the Steelers. I mean, almost Ravens-Steelers territory. And how do I see the series? I mean, I see the Warriors winning it in 5, maybe 6 at the most. I know it's 1-1 now going to Boston, but the Warriors will get that home court advantage back within the next 2 games. It might be 2-2 going back to Golden State. But I think Golden State will, as I said, I think they're going to win in 5 or 6. Just because they stubbed their toe in the first game. As much as I hate Golden State, I have to look as objectively as I can at the matchup. And, and when I look at the matchup, the Warriors have too much firepower, too much experience, too much firepower. And, they're a good defensive team too, just like Boston. So it's not like, Boston can say, well, we've got the edge defensively. I mean, Golden State's really doggone good defensively, unfortunately, as much as I hate to say it. It really bothers me to say it. It really frustrates me that the Warriors are going to be back at the top of the heap in the NBA, and they'll be crowing about how they did it without Durant. They didn't need him, and we're going to have Clay and Steph and Green jammed in our faces all summer long. So it gives me no pleasure to predict that the Warriors are going to win the series. I felt the only 2 teams that were capable of stopping Golden State in this postseason were the Phoenix Suns and the Miami Heat. Or no, excuse me, the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks out of the East, if they were fully healthy, but they weren't. They didn't have Middleton, and that cost them dearly in their Eastern Conference loss. And then the Suns gagging against the Mavericks was a big problem, because I knew as soon as the Mavericks faced the Warriors, they were going to get sliced and diced, which they did. They lost, in 5 games to the Warriors in the Western Conference Finals. I felt like the Suns, who were the defending Western Conference champs and had, kind of a big 3, would be capable of beating the Warriors. But unfortunately, Chris Paul went into the toilet in the Maverick series. And so the Suns came from ahead and lost that series. So once it was Celtics Warriors, I'm like, God, this is not going to be much of a problem for Golden State. I mean, yeah, there's going to be physicality that the Celtics always bring to the proceedings, and there's going to be some hot tempers and whatnot. But Golden State will get out of this thing with a ring, and it'll be the fourth ring for the the Green, Thompson, Curry triumvirate. And again, unfortunate. Very unfortunate. It was unfortunate that the Nuggets were so banged up when they played the Warriors in the first round, or was it second round, of the Western Conference playoffs. Unfortunately, the Clippers didn't have Kawhi. They didn't even get in. I mean, they got to the play-in, and that was it. I mean, you need skill. You need talented players. You need good coaching, which the Warriors have, but you also need injury luck. And I admit the Warriors didn't have injury luck the past couple of years with Clay out, but they have had injury luck this year. They've been relatively healthy, and they played teams that have been banged up. So I guess I was almost going to say good for the Warriors getting the title, but I don't even want to give them that. Let Dub Nation do all the celebrating. I'm not going to give them 1 ounce of congratulations. And it's too bad. It's too bad. And hopefully next year they'll be knocked off their perch. All right, when we return on the other side of the upcoming break, a little bit of Deshaun Watson.
Hey, I'm Jason.
And I'm Gary, and we love ball cards.
And if you love ball cards too, good news. You just found your new favorite podcast. From breaks to grading.
And from collecting to flipping, join us on the Ball Card Show.
The sports podcast for the sports collector.
Hello, Brooks here with the Books with Brooks monthly book club podcast. We read one book a month and then we talk about it. Books like Stephen King's The Shining or Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. If you're on the hunt for book recommendations and enjoy sparkling conversation, come read along with us and then listen in.
Welcome back to the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. I'm your host, Dennis Manoloff. Across the computer screen from me is Jordan Powell. In this segment, I want to talk about Deshaun Watson, supposed to be the QB1 for Cleveland. It's really unfortunate what's happening with Deshaun Watson and all the civil suits, and I guess another one's been added within the last 24 hours. I think the number's up to 24 now. And it's mostly unfortunate, obviously, for the plaintiffs. I mean, I don't feel sympathy for Deshaun Watson if there's a shred of truth to any of this. Now, Watson admits he acknowledges, he doesn't admit anything, doesn't acknowledge anything. He maintains steadfastly that he's innocent of anything. He didn't do anything wrong. Okay. But here's the problem. There's so much smoke that it's almost impossible to believe that he was, innocent in every single encounter with all of these women. It's really, really stretching your credulity, if you will, to believe that Watson did absolutely nothing wrong. And I've come to a position now after reading and listening to Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk on NBC. He's a legendary NFL media guy. And, he was talking with Peter King the other day on a video, and Mike Florio is not only a media person, but he's an attorney, and he's dealt with civil cases, and he said almost for 20 years. And Mike Florio essentially was giving advice to Deshaun Watson that he needs to settle these cases. And he was telling Deshaun Watson, without telling him directly, he was saying it on his Pro Football Talk hit with Peter King, that every single one of these civil suits, if not settled, logically, it goes to a trial. So every one of these is going to be decided by trial. And in Mike Florio's estimation, and again, he would know because he's an attorney and he's dealt with civil cases for almost 20 years. He said every one of them is a coin flip. Every one of them amounts to a coin flip. So if you're Deshaun Watson, you are hoping, praying, fingers crossed, toes crossed, that every single coin flip comes up with your face on it, like your win. And DeFlorio was saying that is an unbelievable amount to ask. That's playing the odds like you can't even imagine. So, and the other thing about it is, and this wasn't necessarily Florio saying it, but I'm saying it off of what Florio was saying. You lose one of the cases, you might as well have lost them all. Okay. You can win the first however many, let's say 22, 23. You lose the 24th case, you might as well have lost them all, because one loss is the equivalent of 24 losses in the eyes of the public and in the eyes of everybody else, because one loss means, well, you know what? Deshaun Watson wasn't innocent after all in the eyes of the civil court, in the eyes of that jury. So he's guilty in the public eye. It won't be like Deshaun Watson will be able to say to people, hey, I was 23-1. Nobody's going to care. So the more I think about what Florio said, the more I think it's probably wise, it's probably prudent, as much as it will bother Watson to do it, because it would amount to some sort of a capitulation. I think he would be wise to take the L, if you will, settle the cases, admit no guilt, because you can settle cases and do the NDAs, the non-disclosure agreements, without admitting guilt. Think about, as one example, Kobe Bryant. Way back when Kobe Bryant was accused of the sexual assault in Colorado, the case never went to trial. I believe it was there were hearings. I know there were hearings because he was flown into Colorado, but it was settled. And there's a non-disclosure and it's binding forever. Okay, so there was no admission of guilt on the part of Kobe Bryant, even though he settled, and people can draw their own conclusions. In his mind, he didn't plead guilty to anything. He didn't cop to anything. Okay. So if I'm Deshaun Watson, I'm reconsidering my digging in. Now, it's easy for me to say on the outside. Absolutely. Because if I were accused of something that I didn't do, I would want to fight it to the ends of the earth. Okay. There's no question. I would not want my name linked with any false accusations, let alone false accusations pertaining to, sexual misconduct or any kind of misconduct involving, humans or anything else. Okay. Any kind of misconduct. I don't want to be linked to it. And I don't want to be just saying, well, okay, I'll settle just to make it go away. The problem for Watson, though, is the sheer volume of cases, number one. Number two, that he's not an individual in the private sector. He's not an individual even in the public sector. He is part of a team. He's part of an organization. And as Florio described, the way this is going to play out, when you only have a 6-month window to do the trials because 6 months are going to be devoted to football, you've shrunk the calendar by half every year. This trial situation could very well drag on for multiple years. So you're going to have a multi-year trial situation in which you're gambling that the coin flip is going to go your way every single time. And then even after that, even if you were to run the table and get every single coin flip your way, and every single time the jury would say, there's nothing to see here, Watson is innocent of all charges or of all accusations, the preponderance of evidence was not, shown. There's the court of public opinion that has already made up its mind by now. And they're going to say, whether you brag about it or not, being undefeated, they're going to say, well, it doesn't matter. It was credible enough that he must have done something. And I know, as I said, I wouldn't want to do I wouldn't want to concede 1 inch, but I'm not a football player. I don't have 20 plus cases against me. I don't have a team that I'm responsible for, and I don't have the reality looking in my face that it's going to take years, not days, not weeks, not months, but years to adjudicate this, or to get this done in the civil side. So I think Watson would be wise to heed Florio's advice and recognize that his, high profile attorney, Rusty Hardin. Okay, well, Hardin is all about the courtroom. Hardin's game is the courtroom. His field of expertise is the courtroom. So of course he wants to fight every single, accuser. But that might not be the prudent play in the case of Deshaun Watson. All right, when we return on the other side of the upcoming break, we'll wrap with Phil Mickelson.
What's up, everyone? Chase Smith here, host of the Chase Smith Podcast, and my podcast reflects who I am. My hobbies, my interests, my passions, my curiosities, my careers, my questions, and my family. I'll spend time talking about all types of sports, movies, TV shows, trending news stories, and other cultural events, and even faith. This is who I am, and I hope I can get to know you as well. Join me on the Chase Smith Podcast, and let's have some thought-provoking conversations, only on the Press Play Podcast Network.
What's good, everybody? My name is Taylor Vanderbilt, and I'm the host of the 440 College Basketball Podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network. On the 440, we talk about literally everything college basketball related. It could be women's, it could be men's, it could be recruiting, it could be the tournament. It does not matter. We cover it all. So check it out. Again, it's the 440 College Basketball Podcast here on the Press Play Podcast Network.
Welcome back to the Dennis Manoloff Show, part of the Press Play Podcast Network. We'll wrap with Phil Mickelson. Mickelson announced on social media that he's joining LIV Golf, the Saudi-backed league, and has pretty much cut ties with the PGA Tour. He will try to play the majors as well, but the PGA Tour doesn't have oversight over the majors. Part of his statement was, "I'm thrilled to begin with LIV Golf, appreciate everyone involved. I also intend to play the majors. I fully respect some may disagree with this decision. Have strong opinion. I empathize with that. I have a renewed spirit and excitement for the game. Incredibly grateful, support of my fans," and on and on. Mickelson, basically banished himself and then had sponsors abandon him after he said some, rather unfortunate things that, whether they're true or not true, they were unwise pertaining to the Saudis. And, he's been bragging or had been bragging up to that point about how he was going to pit the LIV Tour against the PGA Tour and try to get, LIV to squeeze the PGA for more money. And so he kind of looked at himself as this kingpin, and it kind of backfired on him, more than backfired on him, as he's been in a hiatus for multiple months here. The reason I talk about Phil is he's my favorite golfer. At least he was my favorite golfer, and I'll still root for him. But I mean, it's not like I have to see the PGA Tour in order to enjoy golf. I'm sure I'll watch some of the LIV stuff, but as Rory McIlroy famously said, there's a morality to it when it comes to playing for the LIV Golf, and all you got to do is look it up, and where the Saudi money comes from, and it's just, it's almost disgusting, really, when you think about where the Saudi money is coming from. And that's why, you've had certain PGA players dig in and say, no, we're not doing it. Maybe they don't even love the PGA Tour as much as they're like, we're not going to chase every last dollar in it with the LIV Golf. But Mickelson, his legacy is secure as one of the all-time great golfers. Whether he plays another hole for anything related to the PGA Tour, he's still going to be one of the all-time great golfers. And, good for him. it's sad for golf to a degree. I mean, I wish he would have stayed over here and, at the very least try to dominate the PGA Senior Tour, but obviously he thinks he's much better than that, even as he's gone north of 50. And one of the arguments in his favor is that he won the PGA Championship last year after he was 50 years old. So, we'll see. And we're also going to see how it's going to go with the PGA Tour versus the LIV, because now the LIV's already got Dustin Johnson, and now they got Phil, and maybe they'll try to poach some more. I'm sure they're going to try to poach some more, and we'll see where it goes and how the PGA Tour digs in. As of right now, they're dug in pretty good, but I wouldn't say it's sad for golf. I would just say it's something that's worth watching, as the PGA Tour tries to build a moat around its castle, and the LIV tries to build up its brand. But now Mickelson is over there, and, good for him, I guess. All right, that's it. That'll wrap it up for this edition of Dennis Manoloff Show. Thank you very much for listening. We'll talk to everybody soon.